Hello, everyone. DLCTs. This is just a recording session that we didn't get a chance to do today with our breakout sessions. So this session is really about all things ELAL with the new curriculum and really looking at those big rocks. So my name is Kimberly Goosen. I'm your new curriculum ELAL consultant K-6, and I work with Camille Uzbinski, who is your core elementary ELAL consultant from grades 1 to 6. So just reminding you again about our big rocks. So regardless of curriculum changes, these are the things that really ground us in our literacy programs. And that is the idea of a mentor text, a literacy block, and comprehensive literacy. So I want you to think about what kind of outcomes can you address in a grade level curriculum with a mentor text? If your answer is all of them, you are absolutely correct. And so we really want to encourage teachers to use a mentor text, look at it in many different ways, and create unit plans that really hone in on the different skills that you can get from just a simple mentor text. So the idea of using it really to guide our entire literacy block. And, one day you might focus a little bit more on the text form and structure. And the next day you might look at it through that writing lens or punctuation. So again, coming back to that same mentor text, but really looking at how you can incorporate it throughout your literacy block. So there is questions to think about when you are selecting that picture book. And so that there is a document that is linked. So considerations for selecting text for instruction, but really thinking about first and foremost your curriculum, thinking about the author. Is it honoring and showing that inclusive piece with our students, right? We know better now that we need to have it where our students can see themselves in that text. And then really thinking about what kind of activities I can do with this picture book and our mentor text, and then vice versa, how are we going to then assess our students' learning? So the Racial Jedi EPD does have, and it's linked here right on that Racial Jedi EPD blue text on the top. They do have a list of diverse books that are also linked with IMC. So if your teachers are looking to build diversity with their books that they're bringing as mentor texts, this is a great place to kind of start. As well, if you are looking for anything specific with Indigenous concepts, so for example, kingship is in our new curriculum for ELEL. If you just click on this University of Calgary, so I spoke about this last year with our set, but they have actually had teachers, pre-service teachers, who have created lesson plans with different Indigenous books and concepts. So great avenue to look at these different books and then even have sample lesson plans to go with them. Of course, the Empowering Writers, Barbara Mariconda resources are well used in our schools, and then were purchased for the grade 4 to 6 curriculum implementation. So they also have lots of mentor texts that you can use. So I have the elementary book list and the upper elementary book list that are linked here. And so you can go through if you're looking for specific mentor texts on really showing, for example, suspense or looking at dialogue or any kind of those concepts that are inside those Empowering Writers guides. This is a great list to start with for our teachers. Another one that I wanted to bring you attention to is this website called Engage with the Page. So a big shift in our curriculum was that morphology piece. Of course, it was there before in our old program of studies, but now is a lot more explicit. So this web page actually has different mentor texts that the teachers can use. And when you click on the mentor text, they will have all these activity icons down here. And so they have different morphology suggested activities and lessons that you can do with that specific mentor text. As well, they do have something called a building bases board. So that's under the tools on this website. And so you could actually have this up on your loft board, smart board, whatever you might have for technology, and you'd be able to build words with that board. So our mentor text templates are on the NCIS Google site. If you go under any grade level, so this one's grade 1, and you go to that planning tools and templates button, you will see there, you can scroll down for the ELAL templates, and you will see that there is a mentor text unit planning template. So just a kind of a start to show and guide teachers on how we can use this mentor text in so many ways and help to fill in our literacy block, and really looking at that mentor text in different ways throughout a month, a week, whatever your unit plan might be. The next rock we're going to talk about today is the literacy block. So I want you to think about, how does a literacy block framework, what does it provide for teachers and students? You might say it provides your organization, and it might build routine with our students. It helps with our planning as teachers. And so I wanted you to know that there is some sample literacy blocks, really thinking about the idea that we're not just doing a writing unit and then we are moving on. We're doing a reading unit and moving on. We really want to see it as this kind of like this cyclone where we just have all elements of the curriculum at all times throughout that literacy block. It has been found in research that students have a capacity to listen. For every year of age, they have 1 minute. So an 8-year-old has about 8 minutes attention span. So if we are doing activities that are hours long in the morning, it's not going to engage, and our students are really they need to keep that movement piece going. So being able to have different pieces in your literacy block really helps and addresses with that. So if you go onto the NCIS site, there is a little drop down on the side, and it's ELAL tips and tricks. And so under that, you will see a subpage called literacy blocks. So there is a sample literacy blocks for grades 1, 2, and 3, and then a sample literacy block for 4 to 6 with that adjustment with the time. As well, there is from ARPDC, they created a session on how to effectively design your literacy block. And so I have linked the slides there as well. So it's a great tool to kind of look at and think about, how do I want to design my literacy block? Because there is no one size fits all. And it's really how the teacher feels and comfortable with what they are doing, as well as the student context that they have. So they do have some other samples in there as well, just a caution that their times are not the same as our times. So they have a lot more time, but it does give you some suggestions and ideas that you might want to incorporate into that literacy block. So the final big rock is comprehensive literacy. So what does that shift to comprehensive literacy mean to you? So we've gone from that balanced idea to comprehensive literacy. And really all it's, the shift for me is really thinking about being more explicit in our teaching of reading, oral language, and writing. That doesn't mean that everything that we have been doing needs to be pushed to the side, like shared reading or guided reading, but we need to be explicitly teaching these reading, oral language, and writing skills so that our students have that foundation to be able to do all these other fantastic activities and routines in our classroom. And really, it's the idea that we want our students to become good communicators. And so that's what we are building when we are thinking about our literacy program. So there are some resources that we have purchased with new curriculum to really address the idea of being more explicit with our instruction. So I'm sharing this graphic. It's a word study progression that was done by Michelle and Miriam. So they did our Pillars of Reading sessions last year. They're absolutely fantastic, but they look at the word study as if there is an alphabet layer, a pattern layer, and a meaning layer. And so even before we even get to the concept of words and print, we really think about the idea of Haggerty, which was purchased for kindergarten, in that phonological awareness. So being able to see a compound word, cup, cake, put it together, cupcake. Really listening to those sounds before we even get the concept of what a word is and there's a sentences, we think of this program. As we move along this word study progression and get to that alphabet and pattern layer, so that one-to-one correspondence of those phonics skills, then we get to that phonics companion that was purchased for grade 1 and grade 2 teachers. Finally, as we continue to move along and we think about that meaning layer, so we're looking at base words and prefixes and suffixes and the etymology of words, so the Greek and Latin meanings. That's where that word study program comes in. So that was purchased for grade 3 teachers last year, and then the additional sort book was purchased for our Div 2 teachers. Again, can be used throughout. So really wanted to share this with you so that you can see the why behind all the resources we purchased, and also how having this kind of continuum of resources helps teachers to see, well, if my students are struggling in an alphabet layer, but I'm in grade 4 and I'm supposed to be working at meaning layer, I can go to these other resources to help support these students. So let's dig into some of the resources that were created with this idea of comprehensive literacy. So the Phonics Companion, again, a phonics program that was purchased for grades 1 and grade 2 teachers. Last year, there was a scope and sequence guide that was created, but this year we have also created Google lesson slides. So when you go onto that scope and sequence and you click on that grapheme, you will, the Google lesson slides will pop up. And so you'll see there. So really the idea is these slides are slightly different than the Phonics Companion and how it's set up, but this is really up to your teachers how they want to do it. They can follow the book or they can follow these slides. The slides were adjusted to help with the idea of being more structured with our literacy program, as well as that encoding piece, which was kind of missing with our phonics. So if we think about our phonics instruction week breakdown, this is a really great graphic for our teachers. So the idea that we're only doing about 2 grapheme phoneme correspondence per week. So you would start your lesson on Monday and finish it on Tuesday. Then you would start a new lesson on Wednesday, finish it on Thursday, and Friday would be a review of that entire week. Now with the slides, you'll see that you could do it where you are decoding on the one day, and then the second day you're encoding. Really up to the teacher. So again, with the Phonics Companion, they have the idea that you introduce, you apply, and you consolidate. So on day 1, you could be introducing the skill explicitly, and then on day 2, you could apply through a game and consolidate through something like a decodable text. There are model lesson videos on the NCIS site under that grade 1 resources. When you get to the Phonics Companion page, they have, and you scroll down, you'll see all the videos for each part of the Google slides, so you can see what that might look like in person. The other shift is the idea of morphology. So again, it was in our curriculum in the old program of studies, but now is much more explicit. And so morphology is really the study of words, how they're formed. It's being curious about how they are formed. Morphemes are the smallest unit of meaning in a word. So when you break it down to its smallest unit, it does have meaning. And then finally, etymology, which is a study of the origin of words. So looking at those, for example, Greek or Latin origins of those words, where the words came from. So again, morphology, study of words. Morphemes have the smallest unit of meaning. So they are broken down into things like bases with their prefix and your suffixes. And each of these morphemes carry meaning, which help our students really understand what that word means so that they can apply, for example, the base struct, put it to a different word because they know that means build, and they might see a different word with that base in there and be able to know what that word is. So morphology really helps to build that vocabulary piece with our students. So there is a morphology progression sheet that was done by ARPDC. This is linked on our NCIS site, and just in a couple of slides, I'll show you where to go for this. But it really graphs out from K to 6, what are the necessary skills that I should be doing with our students. And it's a great visual. Again, not a complete, this is your curriculum, but gives you a great gauge of, okay, in grade 1, this is what we're doing, in grade 2, grade 3, etc. The other big hot ticket item that we have had a lot of questions about is tiered vocabulary. So in the curriculum, they talk a lot about teach tier 2 vocabulary, teach tier 3 vocabulary. So just a reminder that your tier 1 vocabulary is that common language. So students really will acquire this naturally as they are talking. It's that conversational that comes up every day with their peers and their teachers. Tier 3 is really, teachers are so fantastic at this. This is your academic language that's more subject specific. So if you are learning about rocks and minerals and you say igneous rock, that would be your specific, your tier 3 vocabulary. It's the tier 2 vocabulary that we really want to be explicitly teaching in our classroom. Well, what is tier 2 vocabulary? So tier 2 vocabulary are transition words like because or although. They can be multi-meaning words like I am sitting at a table or I'm going to table this discussion. Information processing words. So I think of these like your PAT words. Usually students know the answer to a question, but they get stuck on these type of words. So illustrate, demonstrate, formulate. And then finally, concept words. So these are the words that kind of go across our academic world. So things like trust and relationship. So really for me is the idea of taking your vocabulary that extra step and teaching the students these things. So if I were looking at a student, a tier 1 word may be said, but a tier 2 vocabulary word would be exclaimed. So you see that there's just that extra step. So there are no lists for tier 2 vocabulary words because it is so classroom context. It's the words that are coming up in the classroom that we should be teaching, but there are some lists that were created for grades K to 6. And so I have those linked again on the NCIS site. They're not meant to be a checklist, but is a great spot to start so that teachers can kind of see, oh yeah, I'm teaching these words, just to give them kind of an idea. And then there's also a little checklist as well. So really, for me, it's if it comes up in your classroom and it's important, this is definitely a word that we should be teaching our students. So we were going to play a little game about tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 words and identifying them. So you might want to do this maybe at a staff meeting if you have any time. But basically, you would look at this piece of writing and try and identify the different tiers in this writing. So all of the links for the morphology can be found on the NCIS site. If you go again to that ELAL tips and tricks subpage on the left-hand side, you'll look and they'll see morphology in the classroom. And so I've created this little choice board menu, which has links to, again, that progression of morphology that I talked about before with the ARPDC. There's that building bases board from that Engage with the Page mentor text website I was talking about, and there's a link to that as well. There was also a word study correlation guide that was done with our curriculum for just that specific derivational relations book. So if your teachers are trying to dive into it, they could even just do it as a whole group and hit some of their curriculum with the specific lessons that I've outlined. And then some information. So ARPDC actually does a Morphology Mondays session, and they record it and they post it, so you can just go and listen to it when you have time. And there's some more information, general information about what is morphology. The tiered vocabulary, so the selecting checklist and the possible list, again, not a checklist. There is no list from the curriculum, but gives you a general guide of what kind of words for each type of tier 2 by grade. The list is all linked there. As well, I linked from the ELAL EPD, I've linked some vocabulary games that can be played in the classroom. So you don't have to go down the rabbit hole of the EPD. You can just go to this place on the NCIS site to find everything you need. The other thing that was created was the cue chart. I did this last year with the story stroll during our set presentations, but just wanted to remind you that it is there and is a great way to have tiered questions with our students and really see what comprehension our students are at. Are they that kind of that basic level where they're within the text, where you see that red piece? Are they proficient? So that would be that yellow piece. So that's really about the text. Are they able to answer beyond the text questions? And they really are showing you that in-depth comprehension understanding. I've also linked some comprehension instruction pillar on the EPD website if you want a little bit more information about comprehension. So again, this is also on the NCIS site, this lovely visual. I love to have it, like if I was doing reading groups and just wanted to have some questions, I can use that as my guide. So this is under that NCIS site, the ELAL tips and tricks, and it's called Cue Chart for Comprehension Assessment. Also wanted to talk about the grade 4 to 6 resource, the Empowering Writers were purchased. So the guide, the narrative guide and the expository guide were purchased. It was one set of those per 2 teachers to use for their writing programs. Now, we did have something called the literacy launch. So the literacy launch is such a great thing to start in your September, October literacy programs, but basically gets them started on genre, how text is organized in a narrative and expository, looking at how to annotate and how to identify different features. And so we did have access to the Empowering Writers Hub this year, where you could actually go on and they had tons of slides and all the lessons were laid out for you. Now, this did expire on January 30th, but don't fear, we still have this because we do have the resources. So each of the guides has a title page with all of the different lessons that you would do. You see some of them are red and some of them are blue as their outline for grade 4, 5, and 6. So the red, you would go to the narrative guide and do that lesson. Then your second lesson would be the first lesson from your expository guide. So you kind of follow that lesson plan, that template for your literacy launch. And so all of those lessons are in those guides. So we haven't lost those are there. Only thing we lost was the Google Slides, but we don't really need them to do the literacy launch. So again, the literacy launch was really a great start in September for our teachers to help our students to see what are the differences between a narrative and informational. How is the text organized? How can I quickly create a graphic organizer so that I can understand those features? How do they summarize? And looking at that annotation and analysis piece. And I really heavily want to stress the idea that this is really about being oral before we even do any written. This is so important that our students are able to orally speak to these different skills before they even start to do the writing. And so the literacy launch is such a great way to start. Again, that literacy program, the writing program. And so I highly, highly recommend that you show your teachers that they have access to this still. Wanted to also have like a one-stop shop for you. These are linked to all the video recordings I have made of our resources that were purchased this year and last year for ELAL new curriculum. And so if of course, all these resources came and we had to spend all of this money, and we understand that some of these things may not have been picked up and now they want to be looked at. So all of these recordings are just linked there for yourself and your teachers so that you can go and see what that resource is all about. As well, just wanted to bring attention to some of the PG opportunities that we have for the remainder of the year for your teachers. So May 7th, unfortunately, is already full, but this is for grade 6 new curriculum, ELAL and math. On May 8th, we are having a newish teacher PG, a full day PG, for teachers who are in their first or second year, just to kind of help and support them and see what we could do for them for next year. And then May 15th, we have a grade 5-4 new curriculum, ELAL and math PG. And then on May 17th, which is our district PG, I am going to be hosting a session on all things ELAL with the new curriculum. So really looking through resources and templates and the curriculum, and just you can come with lots of questions if you have questions, but that will be our PG session on the 17th. And then finally in June 13th, we will have a Division 1 ELAL and Math PG session. So thank you so much for listening to this video. Please reach out if you have any questions or can't find anything. I am happy to help and support. Thank you so much, and wishing you a fantastic rest of your day.